One of the things that I am sure you do if you have a horse is tie it up. Now, there's different ways to teach a horse to tie up, and I've heard a few over the years. Tying a horse to a donkey, letting them step on the rope as they walk around. Perhaps you know another way. But today, let's dive into how you can make sure your horse never pulls back ever. Hello, welcome to Mark Langley's Horsemanship Podcast, a podcast helping people to understand their horses better, to provide solutions in a calm, connected way. Now, Mark, hard tying. It's something that I think you like to teach a fair bit of, but you don't teach it literally, do it? You teach it sort of in a different way. Can you just explain how you approach teaching a horse to tie up, just sort of in a nutshell?
Well, there's a really good saying, which is the best way to teach a horse to tie up is don't tie it up, because there's so many accidents that can be had and traumatic experiences through hard tying a horse when it's not at the right stage of its education. There's all these kind of, cut corner methods and things like that we can use to sort of, get horses tying up. But the best thing we can do is teach them to lead amazingly. So basically all my guidance goes through the feel of a rope for a long time with young horses, because I don't want to, fill the gaps and cut corners. So sometimes methods that help young horses to lead could be, you pull on the horse's head a little bit with the halter, and then when it doesn't come forward, you might have a breeching rope on it which goes around their rump. And then so then they come forward off the rump pressure, because they're more likely to come forward off that rump pressure. So they start to associate, come forward when I pick up the rope, come forward because the rump pressure's coming. Or someone might hold a stick or a flag and pull on the head a little bit, tap on their ribs, bring them forward and they come forward off the flag. Other people might create a lot of draw in their horses and get their horses to really follow them around, whether it be using a flag to create focus and draw. And then suddenly, the horse got so much draw and focus that you pick up the feel of the rope, and when the horse kind of is not sure, you just wave the flag and then the horse follows over. But what I say is all those methods are cutting corners. They're actually getting the horse to the answer, sometimes without doing the right searching. Now, we don't want them to search and pull back and wrestle and...
Hold on a second there, because you're talking about leading. We're talking about tying up. I just want to tie my horse up. Why are you going to leading?
Well, because the horse has got to learn to survive through a rope separate from us. So all my leading techniques are teaching a horse to follow a rope, and not my body language, not move off my body language all the time, but really follow the rope away from me, back to me, and go past me. So leading is the thing that we're doing all the time, and leading is a direct connection to the horse's head. And when we tie our horses up, they're tied up to a rope that's connected to their head, and that rope is to guide the feet into the right position. Position a rope with a horse, I'm positioning their mind and body to try and follow a feel. So basically, if they pull back, they sit on that rope. Well, because we've taught them to lead so well, then they know that anytime they feel that pressure on their head, they search and find the answer. So, and in my leading, I encourage them to push back. Like, there's a certain stage where I might get a flag or a bit of anxiety on my hat or something, and get them to push back, and then I'll hold on that lead rope till they step forward, and so that they've searched and they've found that pressure that many times that they're not troubled by it. They know what to do. When the rope goes still, they can ground tie. When it's on a rail, they can follow the rope, and they can still move around in the space that the rope offers. But if they pick up the feel of that rope, they'll know how to sort of follow the path of least resistance and find that space again. So, and once they're leading really well, then we might put the rope over the rail and walk the other direction and get them to walk to the rail, walk along the rail, drag the rope along the rail. So they're constantly following the rope away from us, and until they completely trust it. And because by doing that leading, they trust the rope. They learn that, the rope is a friend. And like my joke is, Pete, the rope, well, the horse starts to see the rope as its best friend, or, I talk the Australian jokers, it's the missus who has first say, the missus who has last say, the missus who's most important. The missus, not me. I'm not important. That rope is. And if I'm in the car, you'll be in that float with the rope. Or if I'm over there making a cup of tea, you probably might be on the rail with that rope. So I put a lot of emphasis on that in leading, yeah.
So what's wrong with a horse learning that a rope doesn't move by, say, stepping on it, dragging the rope on the ground and stepping on it a few times? What's wrong with them figuring that out, that actually I can't when the rope pulls, I can't get out of it, so I just won't pull.
So dragging a rope on the ground, I used to do it with horses thinking it was okay, but over time I realised horses learnt to drag the rope. You've got you might have a 2-metre rope, a 3-metre rope, then it gets a bit dirty because they're dragging it around. The idea with a horse dragging a rope is so they learn that stepping on it, they step on it, it drags beside them, they get used to seeing it, and it's not, a spook hazard later on. The only problem with doing it too often is the horses learn to drag a rope, which means when you drop a rope, they don't ground tie, they can learn to drag the rope. They might learn not to step on it, but they still learn to pull that feel of that rope along the ground, which means it makes them a little less sensitive to the pickup of the knot and the directing them through feel, because they've learned to drag the weight of a rope, and a muddy rope is heavier than a clean rope, or a wet rope's heavier than a clean rope. So, there can be, and it makes the rope a bit of a white noise that they kind of shut out to if we do too much of that. So, I'm careful to keep the horse sensitive on the rope through leading and stuff like that. The other thing is we don't want to hard tie or tie a horse up before it's learnt to really trust and follow the rope, because if they pull back and panic too many times, sometimes they get frightened of the pressure on the head. So I've had people have horses at clinics that they've said to me, my horse hard ties really well. Look, it can tie up for hours. And I'm like, yeah, that horse stands frozen for hours. I said, but if I walk up and just give that rope a quick pull like that, and I would not do that when they're hard tied. I'll do it when they're not hard tied, just to prove to the person this horse has like a head trauma, and all it's doing is not moving so it doesn't touch the feel of the rope, if that makes it, or touch the feel of the halter, especially on the pole. So they think their horse is hard tying. So when I got it in my hand, I'll give it a quick, out of the blue pull on its pole, and you'll see those horses run backwards and panic. And I said, see, that pullback's always been in your horse. It's just been learning to hide at the post and hopefully never touch that thing. But if it accidentally did, or something really spooked it enough, it's going to be in a full panic and really hurt itself. So, and I've seen horses that have been hard tied too early and that happens, and then they suddenly frighten of the halter. So it kind of makes the condition worse, or you hurt them,
Okay, so your way of tackling hard tying is all about education, teaching them how to really understand the feel of the rope and understand pressure and understand the guidance of the rope. So a good education is not only setting them up to understand everything, it's also avoiding the problems like being head shy. So if someone wants to learn how to do it through your way, can you just guide through where you would look on the membership? What videos are there for you out there?
Yeah, so on the membership, there's the search bar, and anything that it's got to do with anything about leading is always going to have a tidbit or something in it, and a different horse where I might do something a little bit differently. All the leading exercises, or most of them, will have some form of following a feel forward, backing up through a feel. There'll be lowering the head, there'll be lifting the wither. That's taking the brace out of the front end, getting the lift up and be mobile. There'll be horses that pull back, things like that, that you'll go on to those ones. And if you see those ones, you see what I've done with the horses that have got head fight, that pull back. Then you'll see the lessons where I've, got horses to lead up to rails and things like that. But the thing about, one thing which I didn't probably mention, is when we're teaching our horses to lead, we have to always learn that we can speed up that lead rope. So the lead rope can go quite quickly and the horse can very softly catch up with it and not link it to following our body language. So, it's about learning how to lead and then speeding the lead rope up until the horse is always on time, no matter how fast the rope is going, and never get too patterned. Always be creative, lead my horse down a hole, lead my horse down with its head, lead it up with its head, back it up, lower its head, bring it up, all that sort of stuff. But all the videos that are about leading will...
Sounds like there's an awful lot of videos out there to check, and it doesn't matter if it's not directly related to tying up, it's still going to be relevant. Can you just explain really quickly what lifting the wither means? What do you mean when you say lifting the wither? What's the advantage to it, and what is it?
Lifting the wither is really important so basically there's an indirect rein, and if anyone doesn't know what an indirect rein is, indirect rein, in the terminology that I'll explain it, is the left rein. So if you pick up the left rein, you're influencing the feet to go right. And now, not necessarily the thoughts. I sometimes want the thoughts to be left, but the feet to go right. A direct rein, you lift up and use the direct rein. The left rein will be teaching the feet to go left. So indirect, left means right, feet right. So lifting the wither, we're teaching the horse to start to understand indirect rein pressure, but it starts off through lifting the halter knot, and the horse lifts until their front feet and their chest loosens. They loosen in the base of the neck. They use their thoracic sling. They have to engage their hindquarter a little bit more, and they kind of lift the wither up and shift and loosen the shoulders and move them over. And it's really good for taking the freeze out of any horses that are stuck, jammed up in the front from too much, lateral flexion, where they've just been bending, and the horses have been jammed up in the front, feet stuck and heavy in the forehand. For frozen horses, it's a good start into leading. It takes a little bit. It takes a bit of kind of technique in there, but you can get them to start to loosen up and loosen all their muscles and feet before you teach them to go left, right, backwards, forwards. So they lift, they loosen, and then they kind of shift across a little bit instead of just going forwards heavy on their forehand. So when I see horses that walk really heavy on their forehand, just string out like that, instead of just teaching them to trot forward to pole pressure and get them leading forwards and backwards, I'll really work on the lifting before proper direction, because then they learn to get together, soften and carry themselves properly, because it's essential later on. And this is why leading leads to everything, like the tying up, essential for their safety and all that sort of stuff. But that lifting of the wither and that creating balance and soft movement in a horse is essential, because that leads to all your riding, so they carry themselves better to carry a rider. Because I was just riding a horse today, and because of the tension in the front end, it was a fairly high energy horse, because it was always ridden forward with spurs and kind of got frightened of the legs and would destinate, but it'd start kicking the dirt at the trot, and even though it was an energetic trot, you could feel that front end starting to kind of crash a little bit on you, and as soon as you felt it, and twice it kind of tripped on me like that, and so I could start to adjust it to say, I can feel that starting to happen, lift up, get your balance again, and it'd get its balance, and then it'd find soft movement again. But it was so dangerous to ride a horse like that, because they fall over in the front, they trip, they slip. And so lifting the wither is, getting to use their hindquarter again, and you pick up underneath them, and you lift their head up maybe near their jaw, and you can push them out a little bit, and then eventually from holding them underneath the chin a little bit, and lifting, you'll turn it into an indirect rein, which is a more of a longer rein, which is not longer rein, is obviously not holding them under the chin, but you're going back along their neck, where you would pick them up if you're riding them, and you pick it up just in front of the wither, sometimes, maybe 10 centimetres, 20 centimetres in front of the wither, and you lift it up and push against the neck a little bit with a forward kind of motion, a little forward motion. The horse starts to lift the wither and push out, and that's the basis of moving the shoulders out of a circle and having the horse nice and kind of round into a circle too. So really essential lesson, and great for horses that actually rear, because a lot of horses, when their head gets to a certain height, they lock up in the front, they get really braced up hindquarters, and then they just or they flip out. So to lift them up, to get at that point of brace when they lock up, and hold them until they go, well, I can't lock up, it's not working, I might try and move my feet. So then all of a sudden, when the horses get their head up, instead of freezing and locking up and in the muscles, they actually bracing in the base of the neck, they actually go, oh, I can't do that anymore, I'm going to have to loosen. So got a lot of benefits, but it is tricky. Can be tricky on some tough horses, but super, super important.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mark. Talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, everybody.
If you'd like to ask Mark your question and get his insights to help you and your horse, it's easy to join Mark Langley online. Head over to marklangley.com.au and hit join. It's less than a couple of coffees, and the Q&A is just a piece of a whole package designed to support you and your horse with great training.